G'day and welcome to this week's Friday Beers and Tools with Andy. This week we have another beer from one of my local breweries here in Launceston, from the Cane Brewery. This is their Rendezvous at Pelion Gap. Funnily enough, I've been to Pelion Gap. Pelion Gap is on the Great Overland Track here in Tasmania. It's about a 6-day hike and absolutely stunning scenery. So anyway, let's try out the IPA for Friday. Happy Friday. Yep, I like IPAs, you know that. This one's got a little bit more bitterness to it, but not in a bad way, certainly not for me. Rendezvous at Pelion Gap IPA. It's 1.9 standard drinks with a alcohol volume of 6.5%. For those that are visiting Launceston, Cane Brewing is right in the CBD of Launceston, and as I mentioned last week or a couple of weeks ago, they do really great meals and have all their beers on tap there, so well worth a visit. I like that. What does Cane have to say about their beer? Cane Rendezvous at Pelion Gap IPA has a malt base fairy dry palate. Fairy dry palate? Do they mean fairly dry palate? It's definitely fairy. I'll put a picture up here of what I'm reading. Up here. With full bitterness, stone fruit and citrus. Mix of Tassie and US hop varieties. Malt, citrus, stone fruit, pine resin. Fairy dry palate. Anyway, I don't care about the grammar. The beer. It's a really nice beer. It is a little bit more bitter than the IPAs that I would normally really like, but it doesn't seem to detract from this. It actually, I'm not huge on really bitter beers, but this is good. All right, on my Spanner scale, what do we give the Cane Brewing Rendezvous at Pelion Gap IPA? I'm going to give that a 4.5 Spanners out of 5. A very nice drinking beer, local product. Do yourself a favour, give it a try. Let's talk impact drivers. One of my faithfuls, I won't say my old faithful because this is probably mid in the age range of my impact drivers, and I'm talking 1/4 inch impact drivers here, is my Milwaukee, and this is an American version, so it is a 2553-20. I'll put the American, the Australian version of it. It is brushless. I'll put the Australian part number up here so that you can directly compare it. This has been a really nice little unit. It's not particularly powerful as an impact driver. It is fine for most applications, and probably one of its big assets is it's very short in the body. I found myself, whilst I was doing some renovation work, I found myself needing more power than what this puts out. This unit is around about 146 Newton meters or 1,000 inch-pounds of torque, which is pretty good for its size and the fact that it is a 12 volt. Another one of my old faithfuls is this, which is now discontinued. This is a brushed Makita 18 volt version of the LXT. And once again, this is an American version. The part number is LXDT04, and if I can find it, I'll put the Australian part number up here. Although being discontinued, it becomes a little bit harder to find. This is brushed, which is, they're not as powerful, and they certainly don't use the battery as efficiently as a brushless motor. And of course, you have brushes that will wear eventually. This is more powerful than the little Makita, the little Milwaukee that I just showed you, but only just. This is 160 Newton meters as opposed to 146. Again, I was using an impact bit driving some fairly large diameter concrete bits, concrete screws, and this was struggling big time. Even with a decent sized battery on it, it was still struggling. So I thought, well, it's probably about time to update, and I am gradually updating my brushed tools to brushless versions. And so I found online this, which is Makita's latest and largest quarter drive impact. This is the XTD19, and I'll put the Australian part number up here. Why, you ask, did I buy another American part number? Cost. In Australia, we get ripped off for power tools. And I think a lot of eBay sellers and quite a few tool companies in Australia, and I don't know how they get around this with Makita and Milwaukee controlling things from above like a puppeteer, but bringing in the US versions, which are exactly the same specs. It's very interesting. They're exactly the same specs. They look the same. They just have a different part number to our Australian versions. And they are considerably cheaper. The Australian version of this, time to talk a few specs about the new unit. Let's start with price. The Australian version, the DTD172, and have to be a little bit careful looking it up because often these importers of the American version will actually put the Australian part number in their ad, so it's a little bit confusing. But from large tool sellers in Australia, such as Total Tools and Sydney Tools, etc., the Australian version is around about $338. I bought this version, the XTD19, from an eBay seller, brand new, and this was $183. So $150 odd cheaper than the Australian version. Now, I'm not a rich man. I'm retired. I've got to be smarter with my money. $180 tool as opposed to a $338 tool for me is a massive difference. I can't justify a $338 tool. I'm not in business. I can't write it off on tax. So for me to have exactly the same quality as the Australian version for $150 odd less, it's a no-brainer. All right, so we talked a little bit about, I'll put them back in order of strength or power range. 146 odd Newton meters for the Milwaukee, 160 odd for the brushed Makita, now discontinued version. This new version is 180 Newton meters. Considerable jump. It doesn't sound like a huge amount, but it is a considerable jump. One of the other really big things I like is the compactness. Old version, brushed, new version, brushless. Look at the difference in length. Very hard for me to directly compare them, but there is a massive difference in length. Very similar weight, although I've got a 4 amp hour battery and a 3 amp hour battery on this one. To me, that's a no-brainer. Oh, it's even got a light you can turn on there. That's impressive. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit more of the specs. Let's put these out of the road. We're not talking about them right now. I'll put the specs up on the screen as I talk about them. This new unit has 4 stages of impact selection plus 2 T modes, A mode and a bolt mode. On the go, single hand impact selection button, an impressive 180 Newton meters of max fastening torque. XPT technology enhances dust and moisture protection. Ultra compact design with twin side LEDs. I do like that. The original LEDs are in the front here, and okay, they work. But these new ones have the LEDs on either side. You can see them there. It works better. Specifications, 1/4 inch hex, and of course you can get the same sort of drive in 3/8 inch drive and half-inch drive. I don't know the specs on those. I'm not interested in those at the moment. I'm only talking about the 1/4-inch hex drive. Impact rate 0 to 3800 impacts per minute. Maximum capacities high tensile bolt M5 to M14. I would not like to use a 1/4-inch drive on an M14 bolt. That's crazy. Max capacity standard bolt M5 to M16, even crazier. Max tightening torque 180 Newton meters. No load speed 0 to 3600 RPM. Overall length 114 mil, and skin weight without the battery is 0.9 kilogram. And that's important too. If you're using them often, fatigue becomes an issue. So the lighter the tool, the better off you are over many hours of use. So, as I mentioned, this is the American version. Oh, that light stays on if you maybe have to hold it down to turn it off. Right, you have to press that. Right. Really nice, bit hard to show you here, really nice selector here for the different modes, and forwards and backwards, of course, like all of these tools. It's a really nice unit, like all the Makita LXT range. The grip on them is really nice. It feels solid, they feel nice to hold, and again, I think if you were doing long hours of impact screwing or whatever with this, using a relatively light 3 amp hour batteries and changing them out as they require, you won't get fatigued with that very quickly at all. All right, let's talk value for money. If you pay, and I guess, of course, if you're in business and you have the ability to write things off on tax, going into your local tool shop, nice and easy there and then, pick it up, walk out with it. $338 to me is not a cheap LXT tool. It costs a lot of money to set up for a basic set of cordless tools. Yes, you can buy them in kits, and that's probably a good way to go for a young apprentice or somebody starting out, but it's still an outlay of, you know, $1,000, $1,500, which is a lot of money. Tax write-off, of course, if you're in business, or if it's part of your employment. But for me, if you can wait and I think it probably took me a week to get from after ordering it from eBay, the saving justifies buying the US import over the Australian part numbered item. Warranty is always a bit of an issue. I have yet to have a Makita LXT product fail on me and have to claim warranty. So I'm not really stressed about that. A lot of people say if you buy these grey imports, there is no warranty with them. Well, for not far off half the price of the Australian version, I'll go and buy another one if it fails. I don't expect it to fail. They're good quality items and parts are available for them. Triggers, hammers, sets, parts are available. So it's a no-brainer for me. Value for money, therefore, is a 5 out of 5 beers on my GRAYZBILDZ scale. Let's talk functionality. The extra torque, the lightness, the compactness, and in fact we're even talking shorter, a bit hard to show you, but shorter than the Milwaukee M12 version, which already was impressive. This is one of my go-tos for working, you know, in tight areas such as under dashboards and things like that. That's even smaller. It's probably not lighter because of the bigger 18-volt battery, but that's okay. Size, getting the head in, especially if you've got, and this is a fairly long bit in this case, but getting a shorter bit on, getting into places, that's an important consideration for the size of these units. So for me, functionality wise, it's a 5 out of 5 as well. I have no affiliation and don't get any kickback, but I'll find a link to what I've bought and I'll put it down in the description below. It may be on Amazon as well. I'll check that in post and during edit. Just a quick addendum to this. During editing, I had a quick look on Amazon. Amazingly, Amazon have the Australian part numbered item, and it is currently $219. So that means you get the Australian warranty as well. So I'll put a link down in the description below to this Amazon tool, and remember that I get a small kickback if you buy through Amazon with my link. It doesn't cost you any extra though. And in fact, I think this was an Amazon purchase. So I think you might have to stick with some of the eBay sellers, etc. But look, for me, that's a winner, and it happily replaces this. I will be selling this if you're interested in the brushed version, because I don't need both. That took a little bit longer than what I thought it was going to today, but that's okay. I hope things are good with you where you are. I'm trying to keep up the fry bats weekly, but of course I've still got to work that in with other commitments. So I'll get them out as I can. Anyway, happy Friday. See you next week, hopefully. Cheers. This is their, oh God, glasses. 1.9 standard drinks. So it's a bit more of a mid-range beer. And tell me how many. Yes, it does. 6.5% alcohol volume, yet it's still only 1.9 standard drinks. Sorry. I'm going to give that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Where did I get that from? This new version, which also I will show you very quick. No, let's talk about, keep going with the impact.